This was the low light of the season, the whole world watching, and the Patriots somehow lose. Well, think about this. Since Tom Brady walked out of New England, it has been all bad for Belichick. Now, Bill Belichick tried to spend boatloads of money, $163 million to be exact, to fix the problem. But the problem is, when you don't have an eye for talent, it does not matter how much money you spend on talent, because that talent will still fall short. After that $163 million spent, Bill Belichick went to the playoffs, and he got whooped 47-17. So where does Belichick lie now? His great legacy. Well, without Tom Brady, y'all see the numbers. 42-42 is record. Since 2020, 24-24. He's 500 as a head coach. The greatest coach of all time, and he's literally average. It might be time for Belichick to retire because he's hurting his legacy. So, Joy, let me come to you and ask you this question. Is Bill Belichick hurting his legacy?
As of right now, no, I don't think so. But it also depends on what you think Bill Belichick's legacy is. If you think he's the greatest coach of all time, if he continues to trend in this direction and continues to coach and have the results that we're seeing from the Patriots, I think it will. If you think he's just an all-time great coach and one of the greatest defensive minds of all time, then no, I don't think it will. I'm sure Patriots fans have a different opinion because they're used to playing in Super Bowls or being favored to go to the Super Bowl every single year. So I understand that they're not used to this lifestyle. Welcome to the real world. This is how it goes. I think the conversation around Bill Belichick will be defined by the core of his legacy, which is obviously the dynasty that he had with Tom Brady. Who gets more credit? I think now we can all lean towards Tom Brady because we've seen him. We don't have to play the hypothetical. We've seen him go to another organization and immediately win a Super Bowl. But when you really look at what's been happening with the Patriots, this should have been expected. We should have seen this coming. We go back to 2019, Brady's last year there. What were they? They were first in scoring defense, first in total defense, 10 in the offensive line, and ranked 10th in the defensive line. Offense, 7th in scoring offense, 15th in total offense, 16th in wide receiver receiving yards, 12th in rushing yards. That's really what we're seeing now. The defense wins them a lot of games still, and they're not a really dynamic offense. That's why Brady got up out of there. Because Brady saw this is the way of the new NFL, and Bill hasn't modernized. And we see this sometimes with legendary coaches. It's hard to change how you've done something for decades and adjust to a new world. And Belichick is just not aging well. You think he's hurting his legacy by adding these losses?
No, I would say no. I think who Belichick is, like, we can't get that out of our mind. The Patriots dynasty years, 6 rings, like, no matter how bad he does, like, you can't get rid of that. That's success that happened. But I will say this, I do think that people will start, realizing this is what he would have been without Tom Brady, right? I mean, people forget that, like, when he coached with the Browns, like, that never existed. That did. He was 37-45, right? 5 seasons there. He's only won 1 playoff appearance. So when I look at Belichick, I think he's a good coach. I would never say he's the greatest of all time. When you have a dude like Tom Brady, you can do so many different things. Like you put on that board how they had $163 million. That was the most, right? That was a record. Guaranteed. They would never do that when they had Tom Brady. They didn't have to. Mm-hmm. They could cut players, take this deal if you want to be with this winning organization, or walk. And that's what a lot of players did. So when I look at this, I don't think it can hurt his legacy, but I definitely, people will start realizing, wow, well, a lot of that success over there in that dynasty, that was Tom Brady.
I don't think he has yet, but I think he will if he keeps doing this, honestly. Like, I mean, think about, okay, nobody really holds the Wizards' years against Michael Jordan, right? Nobody thinks about Emmitt Smith as a Cardinal. How's this for an analogy? Nobody outside of Dallas maybe thinks about the fact that Phil Jackson ended on a sad note, getting swept out of the playoffs by the Mavs. Went out sad. But what did Phil Jackson do? He was like, I ain't about to be part of being mediocre. I'm getting the hell out of here. I don't want to be a 5, 6, 7 seed fighting through the playoffs, not getting to the finals. He pieced out quickly. If Belichick does this for 3, 4, 5 more years, and to be clear, he's earned the right to do that. But if you've got a decade of mediocrity on your resume after Brady, yeah, I think it's not going to hurt it in Foxborough. You got the banners and everything, but here, everywhere else in America, if you do this long enough, people are like, yeah, it was pretty rough when Brady wasn't there.
I think he's hurting his legacy because of the name you brought up. Phil Jackson is a great comp. I think Phil Jackson's the greatest modern-day basketball coach of all time.
Yeah,
I mean,
Phil,
he really
yeah,
is.
yeah.
But here's the beautiful part about Phil Jackson. We don't know what he would have been without Kobe or without Mike.
Right.
And we never gonna find out.
That's right.
And that's the beautiful part of it.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't have to know what Belichick would be without Tom Brady.
I knew it.
But now we're finding out. And it's not a great revelation. Phil Jackson might have been terrible without Jordan, might have been terrible without Kobe. We'll never know, and neither will his legacy. And I think that matters. There's another truth, too, and Joy brought this up, and Dave, you brought this up. It depends on how long Belichick keeps coaching and having bad years. Jordan only had those 2 Wizards years. Let me tell on myself, born 1990. I don't remember Jordan with the Bulls. I had to go rewatch Jordan with the Bulls. My cognitive memory as a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old doesn't remember. Oh, remember when Jordan stole the ball from Karl Malone, went down, crossed over Byron Russell, and sank the shot? I don't remember that at 8. I remember it at 28, rewatching the clips, but not at 8. I do remember Jordan on the Wizards, though. So, like, I remember, this Michael Jordan? Like, I had to go remind myself who Mike was. There is going to be a generation of young football players, college players, pro players that are like, this the greatest coach of all time? 9 and 8, Mac Jones, Bill Belichick, the greatest coach of all time? Like, it's going to be very confusing. So that is actually where I stand shady on, like, you know what? If he does keep doing it, it will keep hurting his legacy. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I don't, even that part, like, I knew that. Maybe because I played in that division and I thought he was a good coach. You can't say Belichick's not a good coach. But, like, it's easy when you got to do like Tom Brady.
But you know, there's a quote.
And everybody knows that.
Shady, there's a quote, though. Law-abiding citizen. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove in court. It didn't matter that you knew Bill Belichick was not. You couldn't prove it. But now there's proof. There's some proof.
But when he left, I was so happy because I'm like, wow. Like, now somebody gets to win up there in that division other than the Patriots. And that's what happened. As soon as he leaves, right, he goes to get him a championship. Not only that, everybody talks about how that Bucks team, they were so put together. He knew what he was doing. They had all that talent, but they won't go to no playoffs. They won't go to no playoffs. He get there, not only you get a championship, every year you're contending to be in the playoffs. Like when they buy the season tickets, the fans, they know that, okay, it's a 90% chance we go to the playoffs. Before Tom, it wasn't that. Let's reverse it. Now with the Patriots, they don't know if they're going to the playoffs. They're hoping, they got their fingers crossed. Can we? I just don't, when I look at a great coach, I guess the best coach I can even think about is Andy Reid. Maybe because I coached with him and I've seen it. I've seen the way he prepares his players. I've seen the way he trains them, et cetera, right? And he develops his players. When I look at the Patriots, I don't see nobody getting developed.
Joy, real quick, how many more seasons, and I may have asked you this question before, Bill Belichick, clearly another 7-7 season. He could end up 10-7. He could end up 7-10. We do not know. How much longer until Bill Belichick actually damages his legacy? Because you all both think he's immune right now, and he might be. But, like, how many more seasons until it's like...
I don't know if he's immune. I don't think he's immune. But I think that every year that this goes on, it's going to get worse and worse. I'm not going to forget what was accomplished, and I'm not going to not give Bill Belichick credit for it. I don't think we'll ever see a dynasty like what happened with the New England Patriots ever again in this league for a multitude of reasons, which is why I have a lot of respect for it. Everything had to fall in line. You had to be in the AFC East, okay, which helped a lot. It's not a not. It just is what it was. It's what happens. What if he played it? I don't care about what ifs. What happened was he played in the AFC East, and they dominated it. Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick, had the ultimate chip on his shoulder, was willing to follow along with Bill Belichick's system and listen to him. Tom Brady also benefited from having the same head coach for his entire career in New England, something that hurts a lot of players. That is a benefit. Whether you like Bill Belichick or not, him being there and his presence and his system, parking in the same spot, going to the same training room, knowing the same personnel, the less decisions you have to make in a day, the more you can spend on getting better. Like, that's why dysfunctional places are so hard to win, because you're having to think about more. All of these things had to fall in place. And Tom Brady was the leader of the Death Star. He bought into this. Like, he was the Patriot way. You had to have that kind of player with that kind of attitude in order to keep this over 2 decades. So I think it's a new world now. It's a new type of game. It's more offensive based. There's a lot of things that have changed. But everything aligns. And multiple Super Bowls were won in large part to the defense that the Patriots had. Now, you know me. Tom Brady's untouchable. But we saw it. Against the Rams, 3 points. Fewest points in Super Bowl history, tied for fewest points in Super Bowl history. The Malcolm Butler interception at the goal line held the Rams to 17 points. Like, they benefited from each other. We know that Brady was the bigger slice of the pie because we have the privilege of seeing him play with another organization. But to me, that legacy is set. Every year that this goes on without him, the narrative's going to change whether you like it or not. That's why I thought he should have left when Brady
left.
Like, get up out of there.
It will be fascinating to watch. What will be more fascinating to watch?